is we need to set up Astro, right? Astro is super easy to set up. You just make a directory, navigate to it, init Astro, and then you can run it. So I've already done these steps. So we have a blog up and running. I created 3 posts. So we have 1, 2, 3. Each post has some data. As you can see, Fred is one of the maintainers of Astro. It's just some basic stuff, really. What we need is a searchable JSON index, because this is kind of a, well, I wouldn't say downside to Astro, but they have an amazing system to retrieve posts. So I'm going to show this to you. Like I said, you have .astro files, and they use front matter. So front matter is these 3 dashes, and the 3 dashes allow us to have JavaScript, TypeScript, or something like that inside. And what this one, for instance, does, it can fetch the content, right? And that's so powerful, because this can just get all our markdown files, and it will parse the content, so that will automatically get all the fields we need. So this is basically what we need, but we can only use this in Astro files. So we can't use the Astro fetch content in the JS file, which is a bit of a mission, really. But I know the Astro team is working on something like that, so that Astro becomes a global component. We're just gonna head back to our post. So creating the searchable index, I found a little hack around Astro, which I also shared on my own blog. So what we can do is we can create a search.json.astro file, meaning it turns into a search.json file, but with the Astro extension. That way we can kind of just like use front matter. So what we can do is add some front matter. We can fetch all our posts, and then we can map through them, right? But we want to use this one. Explain it in a little bit. So we want to create a JSON variable, which is the JSON stringified version of a map of all our posts. So all our posts contain quite a lot of data, like the date, the order, the content, whatnot. But we only need these 3 fields. So we just want to map them to the right format. And then we want to JSON stringify that, because if we do that, we can just say, okay, give us all the JSON export. I'm mixing up languages here. So like that. So if we now take our live example and we go to search JSON, we can see that we now generated a post. This is obviously not formatted, but doesn't really matter. You can see this is like a JSON structure, having the title, description, and a slug. What I was going to show you now. So we're going to use Node to run a script that will populate our index. So if you even have an export or an XML feed of your products, you could literally use that to populate this. So this is where Typesense becomes very powerful to me. So let's just see how we now can use this. So this is all we need to create a JSON file. So I'm just going to close that. I'm going to go back here, because this Typesense JS file is what will populate it. We go to this step now. We're going to populate our search index with these 3 posts. So generally you want to populate with a lot of data, but we only have 3 posts. So it just should be enough to demonstrate what we're going to do. Just heading back to this post. Right. So what I found is that we first need to delete the old post collection, right? Because a static site generator only builds the site on build time. So once we build, it generates everything, and it doesn't like update on refresh or something like that. So it just means the easiest way to go about this is to delete the whole collection and repopulate it. Right, so we can just add this before a post scheme. So here. So what this does, it will delete the post collection if it exists, and also it will just log an error saying that it can't delete it for whatever reason. So it could be that it doesn't exist. And then we want to retrieve our JSON data. So we want to do that here, because we first want to wait that it creates this thing again. So this will just recreate it. So this data const will fetch. So this is where we needed the node fetch for our search endpoint. And if you remember correct, that's set to the JSON file we just created. And then we turn that into JSON, right? Because else it will read as plain text and you can't loop it. So then what we want to do, and this is the last step to this, is we want to loop over each item and create a document inside Typesense. So each searchable thing is called a document, and we'll create that based on the post. The post, if you remember correctly from the JSON, is already in the right format, right? So the post will have a title, description, and a slug, and that's exactly what Typesense is expecting from a post document. So that's because we defined it here. So just make sure that that marks up with whatever you defined as the collection. All right, so and I think that's basically it for this little part. So we can now run this, and we can head back to our cluster. And as you can see, our cluster is still here, but now we have this search query, and you can see it's populated with the 3 indexes we created. So we have the posts and we have the descriptions and stuff, and we can search in here if you wanted to, but that obviously will link. So here is if we search on tree. So pretty cool, right? So the first step is we need to create a search.astro file in our page directory. So I'm just going to go here, search Astro, and then we want to have some front matter. So as I said, front matter is kind of like the brains of your page, right? So what it does is it can import component. I forgot to mention that. That's also what makes Astro very powerful. So if you're familiar with React, you can now use this stuff like as a base header or whatever. And that's really powerful stuff. So you'll see in a minute how that works. And then we can define some variables just to make things easier. And then the HTML for it is, I'm just going to paste it like that. And that's basically our main page. So let's just have a look at what it renders now. So if we now go here, open up the search. It doesn't look fancy, but it rendered. Why doesn't it look fancy? Because right, yeah, this obviously links to a style sheet that I didn't include. I might have linked it here. No, I didn't. Right, it's in the GitHub repo, so I kind of link a GitHub repo here at the bottom. So if for whatever reason you want to follow along and you kind of stuck on something, then you can find it here. So here we go. So I'm just going to copy this. Oops. So in your public, you can do this however you want. So you can use Tailwind pretty easily. This just has some of the search stuff already in it. So, oh, whoops. Did I close that? No, I did. Good close. So now you can see it looks a little bit better. So from there, we kind of want to load the instance search. what's the right word for this? It's like a UI component, right? So the instant search adapter and instant search itself. They do have an npm package, but due to some complications in this specific Astro version, that's a bit difficult. So I just use it without it, right? So just paste that at the bottom here. It's the easiest way to go. It's CDN loaded, so it's pretty quick. And then we want to create a way to have our environment variables set, right? So this again is like a little bit of a hacky solution almost, due to a slight limitation in Astro where it can't, in this version, it can't use npm variables inside JS files, right? So we kind of want to define some of our variables here, and just bear in mind that these are not like high-end variables, right? They just make it easy to switch between production and development. So all these things are not like a secret, really. So we could just set them in the file we're going to create, but then we create a search.js file, and this search.js file is what's going to hold all our magic. So just going to copy this. So we create this in a public directory, so we can have search.js. So normally you would just load your .environment file here, but then we have to load this file as a module, and it's just a little bit more of an issue in Astro in terms of how it renders at the moment. But it doesn't take away that it won't work. So this can load our typesense search key from this subset variable, and the same for all the other variables, cache search results, and we define a search parameter. So as a search parameter, we say query by title or description. So we can search through either title or description. And then, let's see. So that's our adapter. Then we want to create a client, which uses like the adapter, and we say, okay, use this client, and search through our post in there. So you could make this dynamic again, but we only have post. And then we want to add a widget, right? So this is kind of what we loaded with the CDN. So we can say, okay, search, you must add a widget. And what it does, it adds like an instant search widget, which is called search box. And it links to the search box div. So you can see the hashtag is like to indicate it should look for an ID with search box. And then if we go back here, you can see we have a div with the ID search box. So that will render our search box. And then we want to render our hits, which are the search results, into this hits div, which you can see here. And what it does, you can define a template for each hit, right? So I just added some styling to this. So I want to render a div with search preview. I want to link it. So I want to link the title, and I want to render the description, and then I want to add a slug. So a link to read more. So if we now save this, we need to still search. Run search start. So the search is now like our instant search setup. And I think the instant search is actually powered by Algolia, or I don't know. It is from Algolia. I don't quite know. But right. So what you see here now is initially it will load, I think, the X amount of results. But now if we search here, you can see it automatically updates. So that's basically what we wanted. So if you can search for post, it will obviously find everything. But if you say post number, it will re-rank them. And I think if there's only one hit, no. Okay, so yeah, that'll just render like this, and they can still link through to wherever we were. So pretty powerful stuff if you ask me. The last thing we want is the post build command, which is basically very easy. We already created this. We just need a way to call it. So I'm going to go back to my code, and where we define this is in our package, right? So what you can do in any npm package is you can say, I want to define a post build. So this will execute after the build is done. So the build is this command. So you can say post this command. You should run, and then we said node source lib typesense.js. So every time our build now runs, it will execute this command. So it will run the typesense file we created. So then let's say we now add another article, right? So this we should have post 4 is here, whatever. And then we build, so our thing will build again. It will create it will delete the old post data, and it will create a new one. It will populate based on a search index. And then once that's done, our site will be published. So that's just basically perfect. I see I made a typo. Oh, I didn't save. My bad. So let's see it in action. I don't know if I know. Oh, right. I think I may have made a mistake here. I did give this a unique name. Right. Oh, wait. Might have been that I just need to reset. Okay, let's see if that works. Yeah, so now our fourth post is also added. And as you can see, we can search for it. Oh yeah, what I wanted to show you guys is that this typesense is pretty amazing in terms of how good it is at, like, so let's say we do this. So 4, obviously a full match, but if you do 5, like, it still finds what we're looking for, because, like, you know, it can just react to that, and it's like a fuzzy search, which is pretty amazing. And yeah, that's about it. So that's how easy it is to add typesense to an Astro or any static site. Right. Is there any specific reason why you used Astro site for integrating typesense? Yeah, it's because I'm a quite big fan of static websites, and I do think they are kind of the future, right? So we as developers are quite responsible for creating fast websites. You know, it was a time when every website needed like a million jQuery plugins and fancy animations, and it's all cool, but then in the end, it's all bandwidth, and you know, it's not nice. So I'm a big believer of static sites because they're just the fastest thing out there. And it doesn't mean they don't have to be, they can't be dynamic, as you can see. So we can add a search and it's kind of still dynamic. A little bit of the downside, of course, as I said, is that Astro is very much in a little startup phase. And yeah, they have some bugs out there that they are working on. But yeah, that's why I wanted to use Astro, just because I like supporting them. They're open source, and they just need the help they can get. Then we have a question from Sleepwalker asking can you use Gatsby plugin on typesense? I'm not sure if there is a plugin already, but you can definitely use typesense in a Gatsby website. So that would almost be the same, probably even easier, because Gatsby would be able to use the npm package for the search interface. So the search interface would be actually easier in a Gatsby website. Then we have a question from Aviyel. What was the biggest challenge you as a dev faced with Typesense and creating the static website? I think the biggest challenge for me is always getting the list of JSON posts, right? I've built a static website search before, and it was all custom-made JavaScript. So just vanilla JavaScript search. Biggest downside there is that you can't use fuzzy search. It doesn't index, it doesn't scale, because you're literally searching off a JSON file. So I was very happy that Typesense has a good fix for it. The downside at the moment is that you have to load some JavaScript. I know you kind of need the JavaScript, but I would like to see it as a component maybe. So I'd be definitely keen to try and make it into a Astro plugin, so you can use it as a component on its own. Can the items have weightage? Yeah, it can. Also, if this weightage can be calculated based on other fields, like a map reduce. That's a very good question. I'm not too sure if the weightage can be calculated based on other fields. I do actually think I've seen that. Let me see if I can find anything about that. So Typesense has really well documented stuff. I'm just gonna search on, that's ironic, search on the Typesense website. But the way, they definitely have that. I've seen that. The relative weight, you can say. So I'm not too sure. Query by weights. The relative weights you can give to each query by field, but I don't know if you can map them. Right, so for instance, query by weights 112 with query will give equal weights to field A and B and twice the weight to field C. So you can definitely do stuff like that.